Colleagues in Peace. I'm Jim Holderman, Chair of the District 5450 Peace Committee, and which sponsors the Forum for Discussion. So tonight we're very excited to hear from Summer Lewis, who is the coordinator for Rotary and the Institute for Economics and Peace, the partnership. A Rotary Peace Fellow, she's effectively spearheading Rotary's deep dive into peace internationally. Having traveled across 42 countries, she's joining us this evening from her home in Oaxaca, Mexico. And then along with building a peace, she also makes peace with her as a wonderful musician. Summer, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. So I was going to say, Jim, yes, if you can record, I would love to be able to share this with my mother, who is not up this late to be able to watch this, but she specifically asked if it would be possible to see this. So thank you for that. Thank you so much to everyone. I'm seeing some familiar faces here, and it's always such a pleasure to see you, to meet you here on Zoom. Outside of work hours, well, for some people, I was curious who gets the award for staying up the latest. I think it is Arzu at 3:30 a.m. Does anyone else win? Where they're at? Or getting up the earliest, whichever way you look at it. So thanks again. I forgot to ask you, Jim, how much time do I have?
1 hour.
Oh, that's a lot. Okay. So what I'm going to present on today is a bit about the Rotary IEP partnership. And I was specifically asked if I could do part of a presentation that came out of the Rotary Presidential Peace Conference in London in February of this year. So for those of you who were there, I apologize, you will have seen part of this, but I did include some new information about the partnership and the different activities that we have. I will go ahead and share my screen. I will do my best to not talk for an hour total. It should be less than that, but hope to have some time then for questions and answers at the end. And feel free if you want to put questions in the chat as they come up. I won't be able to look at them until the end. But yeah, usually it's easier for me to wait to the end to answer questions so I don't get distracted. Okay, so let's see if this works in slideshow. Are you seeing a full screen?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. With furry critters on it?
Yes.
So you're probably wondering why on earth are you looking at a dog and a cat? Well, what I'm here to talk to you about today is the Rotary IEP partnership, which seems like a pretty reasonable partnership. Makes sense why the two parties are together. But before I go into the Rotary IEP partnership, what I did want to talk about a little bit, just to lighten things up. I think we're kind of in some heavy times now. So I wanted to lighten things up by talking a little bit more about an unlikely partnership. And that's the partnership between Henry the dog and Ginger the cat. So Henry is a dog that I found outside of my house in Mexico about 3 years ago. And he was looking pretty bad, clearly had either been abandoned or, oh, that's my cat drawing on the screen. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, Ginger is joining me on top of the desk. So Henry was looking pretty bad, and I kind of took pity on him and thought, this poor dog, I'll give him some tuna, give him some food. Just felt a little bit of compassion for this poor animal that was outside of my house. Somehow, though, he stuck around. Obviously, you give a stray dog some food, they're going to stick around. So I ended up somehow adopting him. About a week later, a friend came over and said, what are you going to do with this dog? And I said, I guess we need to go take him to the vet, see about getting him cleaned up, sterilized, and all of those things. So out of nowhere, I realized I had adopted a dog without ever really intending to. Then about another week later, I was out on a walk with Henry, my new dog, and the same friend, and we came across a small kitten that was on the side of the road covered in fleas. She did not appear to have owners. She looked pretty abandoned as well. And so my friend who clearly has a penchant, as we can tell, for rescuing animals, scooped up the cat. We went back to her house. Well, the kitten went back to her house and put some flea powder on her and said, okay, she's good to go. And then I said, well, what are you going to do with the kitten? You already have 5 cats. She said, well, I can't keep the kitten. Like you said, I've got 5 cats. So can you take the kitten home with you? And then maybe we'll try to figure out if someone can adopt the kitten. And I thought, well, I can't do that. A, I just adopted this dog that I don't know if he gets along with cats. And B, I cannot end up with more animals. I'm already dealing with, adopting one that I never intended to. But somehow I ended up taking the cat home wrapped up in a sweater. So we're at home and trying to get settled in. And I was genuinely worried that Henry and Ginger, so I named the kitten, which is probably mistake number 1, but I was really worried that they wouldn't get along. And so I'd been really working those first few days to keep them separated. I had this kind of idea in my head from things I'd been told that dogs, they don't get along with cats, and I wanted to protect the kitten as much as possible. But after about a week of this, obviously it was getting difficult to try to keep the two completely separated. So I ended up coming to a reckoning point and saying, okay, I've got to figure out if these two can get along. So I'm going to put them both in a room and be there in case the dog goes after the kitten or anything like that. So I put the kitten on the ground. Henry was nearby and waited, with my breath held to see what would happen. This tiny little kitten hissed at Henry, and Henry walked over and kind of sniffed her and then just walked off. And so I breathed a sigh of relief and I said, okay, it's going to be fine. And then I also realized, oh my gosh, I think I also just adopted a kitten. So within the course of 2 weeks, I had gone from being completely carefree, traveling the world, to being adopted by a dog and a cat. But the beautiful part of this story is to say that Henry and Ginger are now pals. You can see Ginger here on my desk. They get along, they play with each other, they keep the house protected from squirrels. Yes, we have squirrels in Mexico. And Ginger likes to keep Henry company when he's hiding in the bathroom because there's fireworks. He doesn't like fireworks at all. So why am I telling you this story? You may be wondering. Well, apart from lightening things up, how many people here understand this or have had experiences like this? I can't see everyone's hands, but I would wager that many of us here in the room have some amazing stories about pets and animals getting along and bringing a lot of joy to our life. But one of the reasons I like to talk about this story and this example is because it has everything to do with cooperation, collaboration, and getting along. And these are some of the things I'm talking about today. So when I presented at the London Peace Conference about this, I had been reading a book called Humankind, A Hopeful History. And it's a book that I would highly recommend to anyone. It's definitely, I wouldn't say optimist, but it provides a really unique perspective on history. And it's by Rutger Bregman. And so the author posits that there's a persistent myth that by their very nature, humans are selfish, aggressive, and quick to panic. It's what Dutch biologist Frans de Waal likes to call the veneer theory. The notion that civilization is nothing more than a thin veneer that will crack at the merest provocation. But in actuality, the opposite is true. It's when crisis hits, when the bombs fall or the floodwaters rise, that we humans become our best selves. So he also says, if you believe something enough, it can become real. So if there's one lesson to be drawn from the nocebo effect, it's that ideas are never merely ideas. We are what we believe, we find what we go looking for, and what we predict comes to pass. So this has a lot to do, I would say, with our ideas about peace and conflict resolution, as well as about cooperation and collaboration. So when I was reading this book and thinking about these concepts, it really, of course, got me thinking about Henry and Ginger. And some of the beliefs that some people might have saying, well, dogs and cats don't get along and they don't like each other. And that's just how things are. But I thought, I have a case here that's a little bit different. So is it possible potentially to extend this thinking to humans, and especially in this world of peace work? Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people who do bad things in the world. There is definitely war. We know that especially right now. There is suffering. Things are not always great. But we've come a long way. And if you look at data from our partner organization, for example, IEP, we're actually doing much better now than we have before in human history. Of course, there's still a long way to go, but that's why we're Rotarians, right? And that's why we're in this world of peace work. So we can focus on the possibilities. And so if it's possible for a dog and a cat to get along, then what about us? We can apply this illogic, if you will, that creatures are actually more altruistic than even we ourselves believe, to Henry and Ginger, an unlikely pair. And we can also apply that to ourselves. So that brings me to the premise of what I was asked to be here to talk about today, the Rotary IEP partnership. Now, this partnership is pretty much, as I would say, a no-brainer. It started in 2017, and it really came out of a desire from Rotary International and the Institute for Economics and Peace, a respected think tank, to collaborate, to combine the power of Rotary's volunteer force, if you will, and IEP's empirical research on peace and conflict. So we know that Rotary has a key strength to convene and mobilize locally. We also know that this happens at a global level, and Rotarians working together to build peace in their own communities, that's where we can see that lasting peace is possible, because that extends out at a global scale. The Rotary IEP partnership, which basically operates through IEP's Pillars of Positive Peace framework, it provides a unique structure for Rotary members and Rotary itself to view peace as a process and a system versus simply a product or a result, to build capacity in how Rotary members think about peace and development, and to catalyze and activate Rotary community members to make connections for systemic change. So the focus of the partnership that has been around, as mentioned, since 2017 is really on positive peace education for Rotary members and Rotary stakeholders. Our hope, in a way, is to shift some attitudes and approaches to peace building in the Rotary world, and to create or help Rotary members create meaningful change in communities by applying the framework of positive peace to interventions. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the 8 pillars of positive peace, or the positive peace framework, as I've mentioned, this is, I would say, the core methodology or the core of work that IEP does. You can see here on the screen the 8 pillars of positive peace. I won't go into depth with every single one of them, but it basically refers to the underlying attitudes, institutions, and structures of more peaceful societies. And IEP has shown the presence of these in the data and research that they've done globally through their many indices, the Global Peace Index, Positive Peace Report, etc. I'll share some information at the end of this with further links so that those of you who want to delve further into this can do that after the presentation. So the Rotary IEP partnership, what do we do? Well, like I said, we're really focused on offering positive peace education to Rotary members. This comes in a variety of different forms, and I'll mention a few of those today. Any of you who've seen a presentation by me within the past 7 years of the partnership will probably have heard of most of these things, but I'll mention them briefly. They're really great tools for Rotary members to take advantage of, to use in their own clubs and their own initiatives. So the first tool that we have that is really kind of the cornerstone of the work we do is the Rotary Positive Peace Academy. If you haven't taken this, I would highly recommend it. It's a pretty quick course online. It's completely free, and it takes about 2 hours to complete. You receive a certificate at the end, but it covers the basics of IEP, positive peace and their framework, as well as the Rotary Peace ecosystem, as we like to call it. It's a great launching point for people interested in positive peace and trying to figure out ways to get involved with that in Rotary. Some of the other resources we offer after the academy and after taking that and gaining some of the kind of basic knowledge, we have on our website, which is listed here below, and I'll put it in the chat later, a variety of materials that you can click on. But these include a club and district presentation, a PowerPoint and facilitator guide that you can adapt and use to do a presentation on your own, whether it be 30 minutes or 45 minutes, you can adjust it. That talks about the basics of positive and negative peace, Rotary's peace ecosystem, and ways for Rotarians to get involved. We also have a toolkit or a workshop training guide that's been put together a few years ago, but it's still relevant in that it contains a ton of activities. So if you're looking to do a 1, 2, or 3 day workshop, this toolkit provides a lot of material for you to work with. I also tell Rotarians, if you're looking for a one-off activity for a club meeting or something different, the workshop guide, the toolkit is great for that. It provides a number of different activities you can do to make positive peace more tangible and interactive. We also have a positive peace design tool or project design tool. This we just revamped and redesigned it. It's really beautiful. Again, available via the web page. What it allows you to do, it's a PDF that allows you to think about the 8 pillars of positive peace and how they apply to a project. So very specifically, and it walks you through a rather simple table, but we've had a lot of people say, wow, this really helped get me thinking about applying positive peace to an initiative that I'm working on as a Rotarian. And then finally, another resource, and what I would say is the most exciting program of the partnership, is our Positive Peace Activator program. So this is our flagship program. It began in 2020, and it involves 20 hours of training, be it online or in person, training active Rotary members and stakeholders, including Rotaractors, Rotary Peace Fellows, in specific regions on the Positive Peace framework and Rotary's peace ecosystem, while at the same time creating strong regional networks within a global network. So I know Jim Halderman is an activator. I see Mike Caruso here. He's an activator. I can't see everybody at this moment because I have my presentation screen up, but I'm sure there are a number of Positive Peace activators here. This program started in 2020, and we feel it's been able to fill a gap in the Rotary Peace ecosystem, especially education offerings, because it allows Rotary members to gain substantial knowledge and resources in 20 hours of training. So it's not, just a short course. We also ask that Rotary members and activators commit to 2 years of service once they are trained. So it does involve a significant commitment of time and energy. But the activator program, I'd say what's really unique about it is that it provides access to a global network of like-minded peace builders. There are definitely programs in Rotary for this, but we have found that there's been such interest in this program, and it continues to grow, that we really see its unique placement in the Rotary world. So like I said, activators agree to do service work following their training, and our activators have certainly lived up to that. Once their 2-year term is complete, activators can decide if they wish to continue or not. Now, this was one of the spots in my presentation. I was going to focus a little bit deeper on this program in particular. So just to note, 9 trainings have been conducted since 2020, regional trainings. And out of all of those trainings, we've had more than 1,200 applicants. So one thing I didn't mention is that the Rotary Positive Peace Activator program, it is competitive. The goal originally was to have between 30 and 40 activators per regional cohort. And that was with the idea of creating really tight-knit cohorts that aren't too big and don't have too many people. That also does mean, though, that it's competitive and selective. And trust me, there's a lot of demand. We are hoping over the coming years to continue to potentially scale this program and be able to offer more trainings in more places. So for people who say, I want to join this, I really want to do it, I'll put my contact info in the box and you can send it to me. I do keep lists. There are also other ways that I'll inform you about that you can sign up to be informed of future trainings. The next big training that we have will be in Middle East, North Africa in February of 2025. We just closed the application process for that and we'll be making the selection here in the next month. We're very excited about this training, clearly based on what is going on in the Middle East, North Africa at the moment, but as well because it will come immediately before Stephanie Erçik's Presidential Peace Conference in Istanbul, Turkey. So I mentioned before that activators, one of the requests or one of the, I guess you could say, expectations per se of the program is that they be active. We ask them to carry out actions, as we call them, or activities after they're trained. And at present, so out of the 318 total trained activators since 2020, 270 are active, as in after their 2-year period, they have decided to stay on, which I feel for a program that's been around for 4 years is pretty impressive to be having that level of retention. And these activators, they've carried out over 1,000 actions. I would say this number is grossly underestimated in the sense that I ask activators to fill out a form and tell me what they're doing. Not everyone does that. So I would say we could probably double this and say that they're doing twice as much of this. I just may not know about it. But out of that, we have found out of that log form that they've dedicated over 12,000 hours of service and they've reached more than 12 million people. And that's in terms of saying how many people have participated in your action or activity. If you were doing, a radio show, how many people listened? If you carried out a workshop, how many people were there, etc. I like to say this is really impressive for around 270 people, 318 over the total course of the program, that they've reached this many people and that they've done this much work. And keep in mind as well, they're all volunteers. I get really excited when I hear their stories and get to learn more about what activators are doing. And our activators are generally very, very motivated to get out there and share more with the world about positive peace. So having said all of that, I mean, I think you can tell the activator program is by far my favorite part of the partnership. And it takes up, I would say, about 80% of my work now with the partnership, trying to manage and strategize and think about, we've built this program since 2020 with 9 trainings in 7 different regions. How are we going to grow it and scale it? But we do have a lot of really hopeful plans for that in the future. But taking a step back from the partnership and from all of these specific programs that we're working on, I like to end some of my presentations by asking participants and listeners to take a bit of a bird's eye view of Rotary, to kind of scale out and think about the power of network. I definitely see this in my work. I see it with the partnership. Definitely with the activator program. Some of the main goals of those programs and what we are doing is network weaving. And this is what Rotary members do so well. You all know this as folks involved in Rotary. I just think sometimes that people outside of Rotary don't necessarily see that. So I like to remind Rotarians of that, to just say, this is amazing, the network weaving that's going on. And the respected peace scholar, John Paul Lederach, he wrote in The Moral Imagination, The Art and Soul of Peace Building, another book that I would highly recommend if you're looking for books on peace building. He talks about building social change through the invisible web of relationships. And he refers to this as the center that holds things together. So he originally had more of a kind of top down and bottom up and middle out understanding of movement building. But over the years, he shifted that to more of this idea of the web. And as he says, it's a realization that this is just, the idea of a web is a far more accurate way of understanding what's going on in the peace building world. And I like to say that's what's going on in the Rotary world with 1.4 million members worldwide. I get to see it on a daily basis in the work that I do in the partnership, and especially working with our activators. We have networks within networks, and they may not always be visible, but it's the fish tank that we in the Rotary world swim in. These networks and connections are strong and powerful. They make it possible to imagine new worlds, to provide support and resources, to learn, and to make a difference in the world. So not too long ago, I was listening to a podcast called Hidden Brain, a wonderful podcast that I would highly recommend, available on Spotify and Apple Music and any of the places you might want to get podcasts. It was a podcast that had been recorded during the pandemic. And it was an episode about relationships 2.0, an antidote to loneliness. And the podcast host was speaking with the Surgeon General of the United States, he was speaking with an expert on loneliness, but they were also referencing some work that the Surgeon General of the United States had referred to regarding the epidemic of loneliness in the United States. And the podcast host was asking, when you go to a medical appointment, your doctor may ask you several questions. Do you smoke? Have you been getting exercise? Are you sleeping? But they rarely ask if you're lonely. And US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy believes that we are suffering from an epidemic of loneliness. And so in that podcast, they really explore that. And I remember as I was listening to that podcast, I started getting some pings in my head related to Rotary International, Rotary clubs, and Rotary members. And it got me thinking back to a conversation I'd had with an older Rotarian during the pandemic who told me that his club had evolved to have meetings online during the pandemic, something they had never considered doing before the pandemic. He learned how to use Zoom, and he said that those online meetings were the highlight of his week. He was able to connect online with friends, and fellow Rotary members would check in on each other. I remember sitting in on a presentation once and listening to Rotary members asking, did so-and-so talk to John this week? Is he okay? Okay, who's gonna call him? Let's make sure he's doing all right, etc. And I realized this is such gold because there's, if we're living in an epidemic of loneliness, this, in my mind, should be Rotary's new model, Rotary, the antidote to loneliness. But all jokes aside, it's this network and the connections that are intrinsic to Rotary, and it's important that we recognize those. So in concluding, I just would like to say thank you to you as Rotary members who continue to strengthen these connections and you back them up with tangible peace building skills and knowledge. Our job, at least on the side of the Rotary IP partnership, will be here to help support you in that work. And thank you so much for all that you do.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Summer. Thank you so much. Great stories, great program. Questions, thoughts for Summer?
Oh, good. I answered everything.
As soon as the roar settles down, we'll hear from Karen Johnson.
Okay. Hi, thanks. Yeah, it sounds like it'll be a while before there's an open training again. But that 2-year commitment, what are the kind of guidelines or parameters around that?
So basically, we ask that activators complete 3 actions per year. It's a bit of an arbitrary number, but I used to work in monitoring and evaluation and learned that if you put a number on something, it helps a bit versus just saying, oh, we just want you to be active. But that can involve presentations, conferences, what Jim's doing counts as well, peace education and forums for peace. We do have activators carry out projects where they apply the pillars of positive peace. Some write blogs, some write articles, some record radio shows. We have one who's even a TV personality in Croatia. So he gets out there with the message to a lot of people all at once. But that's basically what it is. We also have formal and informal ways of communicating. So I currently manage, I'm not even sure how many groups in WhatsApp. That's become kind of the communication choice amongst activators. There's regional cohorts that communicate within that cohort. They have their own WhatsApp chat. We have a global chat. There's space for different activators to choose different themes they're interested in and potentially have their own meetings or presentations on those sorts of things.
Okay, thanks.
Mike, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Summer. It's good to see you again. I was
Hi.
at the Peace Activators session in August, just about 6 weeks ago.
We just had one for North America and Caribbean in August. Yes.
Right. And I was asked to do a little presentation. I belong to an organization called Partnering for Peace, which is Rotary and Peace Corps, returned Peace Corps volunteers. And they asked me, they had a week of celebration of the partnership. And on Friday, they asked me to do a little presentation about peace polls. Because in our community back in 2017, we put in 50 peace polls. And then we added some more this year. And so in doing this, I went to what, I just completed being a positive peace activator, and went to the 8 pillars of positive peace. And I looked at them, and I looked at how we approached our effort. We went to the Park and Recs board, we went to the school board, we went to the city council, and took the comparison of how we fit in. I mean, we had low levels of corruption, equitable distribution, equitable sharing of information, and on and on. Everything fit in to the 8 pillars of peace. Now, of course, you're taking what is originally meant for rating countries and bringing it way down to a microcosm of a city. And as I was thinking about it afterwards, is well, all of these were met, and we had a very successful project. We put in, I think, 53 peace polls in the spring of 2017, and we added another 25 this past spring. But if you just look one level up to the county, we did not have the same situation, the same success with the 8 pillars of peace. So the more complex, I'm thinking the more complex the government, the more challenged it is. But it was just a very, very interesting comparison between how you're looking at a small community, a small government that gets along, that works together, and then you just take it to the next level. And all of a sudden, there's maybe 3 or 4 of these pillars that aren't included. And then the higher you get, it seems like the more difficult it gets, especially considering that the United States is, I believe, the 136th most peaceful country. A few years back, it was 110, not going in the right direction, but the challenge is definitely there.
Yeah, so thank you, Mike, for sharing that. I think that's a really good example, though, of, I mean, simply put, application at the local level, right? I mean, and this is something I'm actually also going to put in here. So I've just inserted a bunch of information in the chat box that people can, for more information on some of the points brought up, but I'm also going to specifically share the Positive Peace Project Design Tool. So I mentioned that in our, in my talk, but that, it sounds like that's what you did, Mike. I don't know if you use that document, but it basically goes through the 8 pillars and you apply it to an initiative. I feel like sometimes, or this is where, yes, we're taking the positive peace framework that IEP works with, and they use those 8 pillars at a very international level. So looking at measuring levels of peace of countries. But what's beautiful about the framework, and even, of course, the concept of positive peace, which was originally Johann Galtung's, by the way, is that it can be applied at any level. So you can, we have activators I know who've applied it on like a personal development level and looked at applying it to themselves. Just, it can be used as kind of a filter or a lens or an overlay for many different relationships, ideas, projects, whatever it may be. But I like your example because I find a lot of Rotary members at times, well, not just Rotary members, but people feel helpless when it comes to international events and the big, if you think about it, war, countries battling each other, geopolitical issues that feel completely out of our hands and out of our control. I'm not saying that we can't advocate or, contact legislators or do whatever it is we need to do to raise our voices as peace builders to say this is not okay and we want this changed. What I find is something like what you've done, it's really an effective way for Rotarians to do something at the local level. And it's, and in a way, that's how we build peace. So I feel it's very empowering in certain ways. So thank you for sharing that.
And the design tool is a phenomenal program for anybody to overlay any of your programs, water, health, etc. I mean, you don't have to be an activator to use the design tool, I'm assuming, because it is such a wonderfully designed tool and can be very flexible.
So that design tool I put a link in here because it's linked on myrotary.org, but you can download it. That is available to anyone. They don't even have to be Rotarian. It can be shared far and wide. And in it, it's not a super short document, but you can kind of skip to the actual activity of applying the positive peace pillars. But it includes an example of the application of positive peace pillars to a WASH project that was done by one of our activators. And I find that's very helpful sometimes for people who say, well, okay, peace building and conflict resolution, but what does that have to do with these other areas of focus? They definitely relate. I see Jeff has his, oh, sorry. Are you moderating, Jim? I don't mean to take over.
No, be my guest. Jeff, you have a question.
Hi, Jeff. We're meeting you in Singapore.
Hi, Summer. Thanks for remembering. I certainly remember your presentations and your welcoming demeanor, which is manifest now as well. So I'm pleased to report that the Rotary Club of Shanghai now has a peace building committee. For my sins, I've been asked to be the chair, which I'm delighted about. And I'm also a little bit apprehensive about because we've had our first meeting, we've got 11 people who are excited. And I'm just thinking from all kinds of directions, what I could do to foster growth and action in the committee. So it may be some of what you and other colleagues have said. It could be helpful for a new, peace building committee chair to kind of work on and kind of lean into. But I'd like to just ask for tips from yourself and any other colleagues here as, just getting my feet under the desk, what the heck to do first. Thank you.
Well, I have some ideas, but I'm curious if there's anyone else here who's started a peace building committee and might have some really concrete examples for Jeff before I say what I think he should do.
Our peace committee put together a flyer of about 12 things to do to start your peace committee of actions you can take. Of course, the first one is go to the academy. That's step one. But there are many, many things and other programs. There's a couple of powerful videos. The IEP Rotary video. There's also Peace is Possible video. Peace is on the RAG site that is very, very powerful. I can send you the sheet to give a peace committee a lot of good starting points. And it's been
Thanks so much, Jim.
Yeah, and I think I've seen that, Jim. I think you've shared that with me, and it's perfect. It really outlines some very good steps. If we wanna, what I would say is it's pretty much the same thing. But the Rotary IP partnership webpage, which I listed here, it actually has the video on the Rotary IP partnership on it. And then it's kind of walks you through step by step, like start at the academy, here's the link. Then consider this, here's the link. Then, of course, that maybe seem a bit prescriptive. There's other things you can throw in. I would say though, starting with the academy it's a good baseline. And then from there would be I mean, I have a thought that I know that we have an activator who is at least from China. I'm not sure if he's in China, but I'd be happy to connect you with that activator. And the work of activators, as you know, Karen was asking about that, but part of it is also that they do actions, but also that they connect with Rotary members that are interested in peace. And it can be that they're in the same place as those Rotary members, but we also have a lot of activators that say, yeah, I'll meet with this Rotary member and on the other side of the world online. I'm happy to give some guidance and provide some ideas. So that's also something I could help do, is connect you with an activator.
The
Thanks so
other
much
thing,
for the
I would
ideas, and I
suggest-
would love the connection. Sorry, Jim.
no, go
Can I
ahead,
add something? Can I
Yes.
add something?
please.
You can also join the Rag for Peace. I'm
Well,
gonna add-
they're already a Peace Builder Club with Harry Wong, I think. So they're a new Peace Builder Club. So I also recommend, Jeff, that you connect with other Peace Builder clubs, because that's where you get ideas. In your case, also connect with Mitzi Young and Eric Chak of the Hong Kong and Macau chapter, because they're our flagship chapter and they've done some great things. And also they'll have the cultural context that you'll need for your part of the world.
The other thing that I would suggest, and Summer, even before you open up the Peace Academy, go to the Rotary Action Group for Peace, sign up and read Your Piece of Peace. One of the most powerful short little stories, Your Piece of Peace, on the Rotary Action Group for Peace website. Powerful. 15 minutes, 10 minutes. It's just a great overall, it grabs you by the heart and gives you hope that maybe you can make a difference. Every one of you, I honor, and you can make a difference, but I'd like to bring attention and thank, and I'm going to not do well with the name. Is it Soraya Mohammadi from Afghanistan, who got up early this morning to join us?
Hello everyone. Sorry for not coming in video. So
Thank you for
I'm
joining
so
us.
happy and glad to be here and among all of you. So as James said, I am Sraya Mohammadi, one of the peace builder from Afghanistan. And as well I play the peace game online that we have peace on Earth game by 2013. And after that, today I joined it, and I'm so glad. And Summer had a great presentation. Do I just come late? But all the things that was shared is really great. And as a peace builder and as a dream keeper from Afghanistan, we have lots of peace projects, and we as well have completed lots of them. And though the situation in Afghanistan is bad right now for girls, and especially for girls, and especially for those people that they are active and they have project for peace, but still we are hardworking and we are doing our best to have peace in our country and especially in the world. And by the projects that online and ourselves we had, it will be that we are going to have a better world in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you. And one of the most essential pieces for all of us is to bring hope to anybody and everybody. And hearing stories like that and seeing you around the world certainly brings me hope. Any other questions for Summer, or comments, or sharings? Arzu.
Yes, well, I just applied for the activator course, which is going to happen in February in Istanbul, so I shouldn't miss. That's so exciting because since that process I tried to apply, thinking about projects, even I start thinking, it's very hard to do every day, but every other day, having dialogue with ChatGPT about positive peace. So, especially in Turkish language, it's very thin. this is fantastic. My life has changed since I heard of Steve Cleleo's, if you can't measure something, you can't understand it. So I use that all the time, which is very important for us, for even our daily interaction with everything. So measurement is extremely important. Nevertheless, measuring peace. So I always approach someone when we talk about peace, about that, measuring peace, you understand. During our Rotary Action Group for Peace work, I try to refer which pillar we are activating. Like my favorite one is free flow of information. So
Oh.
critical. It starts everything as long as I'm concerned. So information is the key. And also I came up with this terminology. I'm a retired telecommunications engineer, peace as a service. So since IEP is looking from the tangible aspects of peace, and also we know that we need to distribute peace to grassroots to be able to have ultimate peace and sustainable peace. So we may take some of the engineering system approaches to peace to come up more describable or usable packages. So, but obviously it needs to be described how peace as a service can be applied, which the tool is saying, you know, with the 8 pillars. However, we may go into more detail, like when, how, using these 5 H's, is it? We use in Turkish language, but when, how we can make peace as an enabler, as a process. So since I'm an ambassador and applied for activator work, I started looking from different perspective how to convey the concept that IEP is trying to give in a Rotary environment, you know, starting with interactors. I already set a meeting. I also recommend empathy circle. It's a methodology, enhances deep listening to each other. So using that methodology, however, identifying the topics, which could be IEP's topics like 8 pillars or DEI, lets people to talk what they believe without interruption or being judgmental, and being reflected by the other person. So there are a lot of things to do. I'm so excited.
This is great. It's so true.
There are
Thank you.
lots of things to do, yes.
Karen Johnson.
Yes, thank you. At first, I just want to thank you, Summer, again for your presentation. This is just so interesting. I'm glad to have some more tools and some more readings, and it's wonderful. I want to talk about a little bit about infrastructures for peace building, and and what you talked about is network weaving. So I connected with the Rotary a couple of years ago with the E-Club for World Peace, because we were approached by someone at the Peace Alliance with our campaign for a U.S. Department of Peace Building, and how we can further this. So we've had different conversations. So just looking for opportunities there, like we've gotten more co-sponsors for the federal legislation in the United States in the last couple of years, but we have this dream of being able to somehow connect with Rotary clubs, and maybe if Rotary clubs are forming peace clubs, that might be a vehicle or something, so that we have more constituents on calls, and that makes a big difference in getting more co-sponsors up. So we're very optimistic for 2025 there. But also then I've connected with Pache Benny's Nonviolent Cities Project in a nearby town in Joliet that has more gun violence than the smaller towns around here. And so we're looking for all different ways to offer trainings on peace building and nonviolence, and just continuing the education of everything that's going on, and that spreading the word that there are a lot of people working on this around the world, and how to engage the community and so forth. So looking for thoughts about connecting with those organizations or anything else that comes up for people around me expressing that.
I love the work the Pearson Alliance is doing on that program, trying to get a Department of Peace, and that just would be so valuable, so good. Any further questions for Summer? Arzu spoke of Steve Kilalea, who was the founder of IEP, doing the work for peace and realizing there was no statistic, and without measurement, how do you know? And so he put together this phenomenal program with a lot of other scholars that we call IEP. One of the things that I love that he says frequently is, if you want to understand health, study the healthy bodies. And so he began to look for what are common amongst the the most peaceful nations, and out of that came the 8 commonalities of all of the peaceful nations, which we call the 8 pillars. And that's how they came about. What are the commonalities of all of the peaceful nations? None of that work had been done prior to Steve Kilalea's work, 15 years ago, right, Summer? 15?
Yeah. Might have
Plus or
been
minus a few months. Yeah. But not, yeah, it's not really that long. That's why that IEP is so important. And we first began to use IEP material in the Peace Fellow program in the universities, teaching peace fellows. Then we realized, and Rotary has just taken a deep dive on peace. I sincerely believe we can follow Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point, and with all of us around the world keep rippling out. Each of us are making those ripples, and those ripples are going to begin to connect. And that's when we will begin to see the tipping point.
Yeah.
And I think I'll quote me on that.
I see that Tom has his hand up.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's fine. That's
Sorry.
fine.
Hello, Tom Baker.
I
How
saw
are
Bob
you?
there with a hand and then he disappeared. So I don't know what happened to Bob. So Tom, hi Tom.
Hi. So Jim and I went to the first cohort for Positive Peace Activators, and I was able to attend the training in August. And before the training, I tried to access my educator background. I was an elementary principal for 21 years, and thought I gave a shot at putting the 8 pillars of positive peace in kid-friendly language, and shared it with people there. And Summer, I think, has posted it somewhere.
Yeah, I shared it in our activator group, but would you like me to try to put it in the chat here?
Yeah, it might be of interest to some people, because I think the 8 pillars are kind of in IEP language, and more accessible for kids and maybe even for adults if you take a look at that. And if you can improve on it, do it.
Steve is an academic. There's no question. Uh-oh, Byron, that's not an insult. I'm sorry. Byron Bryant had his hand up. Who's the true academic?
Yeah, I've been having some audio trouble, and in the process of trying to deal with that, I raised my hand. So when Summer called on me, I didn't want her to think I had left. So I wanted to and then I said, well, maybe it's better to put it in the chat, but I didn't get it that done. But I will say, I really appreciated your presentation, Summer. And I plan to be in touch very soon.
Thank you. It's good to see you again, Byron.
It's good to see you too.
So, Summer, again, we are so indeed grateful for the work you do and the information you bring. And we thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge, your expertise with us. This has been fantastic. We all have learned and grown, and it's a tool that we all can use, regardless of our name. I don't know if I can talk about, you can also join IEP as an ambassador. a little different, but there's an educational program that IEP themselves put on so you can become ambassador. And now, I want to share next month, we're going to move into a direction that I have unintentionally avoided to date. Our speaker will challenge us with war and peace, social, organizational, and personal ethics. He will discuss the role of religion in conflict. Our presenter, Dr. Maynard Moore, has been involved in the science and religion dialogue for over 20 years. This was with the Dialogue on Science, Ethics, and Religion program coordinated by the American Association for the Advancement of Science and also with the Washington Theological Union. His extensive bio and extensive details on the subject will be coming soon, and this promises to be interesting. So we finally will begin to talk about religion and role in war. So for all of you, we will see you next month, and I wish you the most peaceful day that you can have starting tomorrow.